Hello and welcome back. This is vlog 2 of the 2015 reading challenge. It's the book Set in the Future, and that book is The Peripheral by William Gibson, which is of course set in two futures. The first future is set 30 years ahead of us, and I'll call that future 1. The second future, which I'll call future 2, is set 100 years ahead of us, so they have 70 years between them. Now, future 1 is a future of scarcity. Our protagonist Flynn, her brother Burton and their friend Connor, they're all struggling to make ends meet. And one of the ways that Burton is making money is by playing computer games, or so he thinks. This brings us directly to future 2, because I'm trying to make this brief because there's a lot going on here. In future 2, which is this far distant future, there is a software that was developed in China that via means of quantum entanglement can connect to a point in the past and enable communication with the people living in that point. Now, the time that you connect to, it's a set point, so you cannot jump around. A week in future 2 is a week in future 1 once you've connected. And if you communicate with those people and interfere in their lives, you irrevocably change the future of those people in the past. In future 1, Burton is playing a game that is actually a surveillance job for someone in future 2. Lev is the youngest brother of an oligarch clan. Now in future 2, the klepts rule everything. The oligarch clans, royalty, so on and so forth. Only the wealthy and powerful and those who work for them remain, because of something called the jackpot. The jackpot is sort of a collection of events rather than one big one. It's sort of an economical and climate change and social problems sort of colliding together to create an environment which became toxic for those under a certain income bracket, and they all died off. So 80% of the population in future 2 is gone, leaving only the wealthy and the super wealthy, those who were able to be protected by means of being wealthy from the effects of the jackpot. Lev's job and his family is basically to find technologies that he can exploit for financial gain. One of the technologies he's found is this entanglement technology, and he's introduced a friend to it as well. This friend is Wilf Neverton, and he is our protagonist in future 2. He is a celebrity minder and publicist, and when we meet him, he's about to lose his job because the celebrity that he's minding, Daedra, is about to do something dreadful. But I will come back to that. In future 1, Burton, who's been playing this game, or so he thinks, has to go off to do some demonstrating against some sort of Christian fundamentalist types, and he wants his sister Flynn to take over from him. She knows gaming work. She's done a little bit under the moniker Easy Ice, so she agrees to do it as long as he pays her, naturally. Smart lass. So he goes off and she takes over his shift on this, and then her brother gets arrested. And she has to do another shift. This time she witnesses a murder. Back to future 2. In future 2, Wilf Neverton has now lost his job and he's gone to his friend Lev. He finds out, whilst he's at Lev's, feeling pretty sorry for himself, that there's been a murder and that his name is connected to it. And so it's kind of in his best interests to help Lev find out who the murderer is. And as luck would have it, one of the people who's been on the other end in the past just happened to witness the murder. Only problem is, somebody else knows it and they want to murder her. So we have this thing where they have to financially manipulate the past in order to build up sort of a company empire to protect Flynn and Burton and Connor, whilst they attempt to bring her via means that I will explain in a moment into the future to identify their murderer. They've also got to build this financial empire because the people who want Flynn dead are doing the damn same thing. It's kind of like a battle of the titans. To bring Flynn into future 2, they have her use her 3D printing friends to make a crown which will enable her to project herself via telepresence into what's known as a peripheral. I find the peripherals very interesting. Peripherals are sort of cyborgs. They look human, they have biological shells to them, but they are in fact machines driven by AI intelligence. But, and here's the important thing, you can, via telepresence, project your mind into a peripheral and move it around like a puppet. Like I said, in Future 2, 80% of the population has gone. What you seem to have in their place, proliferating everywhere where you actually find a semblance of people in this far future London, are instead peripherals. They have these cosplay areas that are entirely people by peripherals. It just seems to me like the peripherals in this book are a bit of a metaphor of sorts. There's a lot of metaphor going on, there's a lot of illusion going on. This is very much a meditation on the differences between the 1% and the rest of us. Anyway, via use of this peripheral and these financial battles back in Future 1, they attempt to find out the identity of the murderer. And there's a load of little cool sort of things in it, like people from Future 2 who end up actually having been in Future 1 in this situation, and it's kind of suggested that they were always meant to be there, so there's a little bit of sort of continuity stuff going on there, continuity loops and everything. It's very, very cool. I really enjoyed the story itself, just as a story, but what mostly clicked into me was the meditation on how things are now, which is basically what the story is a framework for exploring. It's one of those books where you read it and literally every other page you're like, yep, absolutely. I really feel like there are a lot of themes explored in this book that are extremely relevant to our current situation, the way we're going with our climate, the way we're going economically, the way we're going socially. The jackpot feels like a very real end point for all of that, which, you know, I like apocalyptic books, sort of, dystopias and stuff like that. They're kind of okay. They're all a bit samey after a while, especially because they all seem to go the same direction, with viruses going out of control and that kind of big sort of disaster-like thing, whereas the jackpot is just this collection of things going wrong slowly and inexorably, leading to a situation wherein those who cannot afford to survive do not survive. And that is a really frightening idea for the future, that if we don't take charge and try and fix our issues, that they will reach a point where those of us under a certain income bracket are going to find it extremely hard to survive in what will become a very hostile environment to us. Not only financially, but literally the environment will become hostile to us. Large areas of our planet will become too hot to live in, large areas will be underwater, and those of us who can't afford to move, what are we going to do? I think this is a really pertinent book. It has such fantastic ideas in it and such intelligence. All the books by Gibson that I've read have this floating around in the background, this whole idea of society leading to its own demise and those who are wealthy being the only ones sort of protected from it. It definitely feels to me like it's something that he's been meditating on for quite some time, and this is like the culmination of all those thoughts, maybe. They've all sort of come together in this lovely coherent sort of way, and I would just thoroughly recommend anyone who's interested in the way things are and in what could happen to read this book, because so much of it is relevant and so much of it is relatable in our current climate, really. So yeah, read it. I could go on forever about the many thoughts and feels that I had for this book, but I would essentially be here for the entire week. I loved this book like a brother, to be honest. That's a bit sad. I do feel like it's one of his most accomplished books to date, and God, I don't... You know how you say that kind of thing and you're not an academic and you're not an intellectual and you're not even, you know... I'm a science fiction writer, but I am nowhere near that level, and I kind of feel completely silly saying that, but it's also true. It is one of his most accomplished books to date. It is masterfully done. The story itself, over the first sort of 10 to 20 chapters clicks together like cogs slowly, one future and the other future running parallel until we see them coming together and the story forming between the two of them. It is wonderful. It is absolutely marvelously written. It's a perfect mesh of his sort of more poetic cyberpunk style and his much more noirish style that he uses in things like Spook Country and Zero History. I think they're noirish anyway. I feel like they've got that straightforward but slightly pulpy and bleak feel to them. And this has a perfect meshing of those two styles. I really enjoyed it, as you can tell. Maybe a little bit. Probably. So yes, if I were to give it stars, which I probably won't from now on because it's not really a Goodreads review or an Amazon review, it's just me waffling on in front of a camera, generally too much. But yeah, 5 out of 5 if I were to give it any stars, because it's amazing and I would highly recommend that everyone go and pick it up, even if you're not that into sci-fi or whatever, future fiction, go pick it up, read it. It has very important ideas in it. We have kitties. That is The Peripheral by William Gibson. I think maybe I've talked my face off. I'm hoping not, because then I have to edit this. Yeesh. Next week, and it will be next week because I am absolutely storming through my to-read list, will bring you the book that made me cry. And it's not in the way that you think. I will explain next Friday, as will the kitty. This one.